And in the middle, Deon Thomas, and as always, bringing you nothing but the very best. But tonight we got a little bit something special for you. Yes, we have some interviews. Yes, we have some conversations. But what we're doing tonight is some bracket breakdown. And I want to say thank you to my two sponsors, Bet River Sportsbook and Signature Bank. Without my two partners, we are not sitting here tonight. So thank you both. Bracket breakdown for Euro Fighting Illini. As we know, they're rolling into this thing hot, hotter than flapjacks. But what do they got to do to keep it rolling? So in order to do that, yeah, you can hear from me. But I brought two of the greats on here, man. Brought in Sean Harrington. Of course, we know he played at Illinois. We know he has a coaching background. But he's also on the ESPN and was on the Big Ten too. So we bring in one of the best analysts in college basketball to join us tonight. And then another. He came on here telling jokes, talking about, yeah, I see the legends are here. This dude is the legend. He's the one that I follow. He's the one that I call when I need a pat on the back or a little bit of a lift me up on how to do my job. I call Steve Bardo. So we got the starting point guard for the Flying Illini. We got the host for Bardo's Breakdown, Mr. Steve Bardo, my big bro. Thank you for joining me tonight, gentlemen.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Deon. It's a pleasure, man.
Hey, man, I'm getting better and better at that, man. But it's so easy to talk about great people.
I found all I got to do is surround myself with greatness, and then you become great yourself. So I just come in with you two guys, and then I'm considered a legend too. Find myself with great teammates, and now all of a sudden I'm a great player as well. So I just got to surround myself with greatness, and then it rubs off on you.
There you go.
Ain't that
the same, Sean?
Ain't that what they tell you to do anyway? Make sure you're around the right people and things normally go better for you.
That's right.
So here you go. But hey, guys, coming over here to discuss, and yeah, all seriousness aside, we know how much we love our Illini. We also know about how good they've been looking here recently, going on to win the Big Ten Tournament championship. But now the real dance starts. The real party begins. You guys have both been covering these teams all year. What do you see? Let's start off first and foremost, Steve, with you. What do you see in this University of Illinois team that makes you think that they have a good run in them?
I think, Deon, that when you look at Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Cockburn, you're looking at the best 1-2 punch in college basketball. Kofi Cockburn's numbers this year would have been Big Ten Player of the Year worthy had it not been for Luka Garza and Ayo Dosunmu. I mean, his numbers are that dominant, and he's that big. And the guys in the Big Ten have seen him a few times, so they know how to deal with him. But nobody else outside the Big Ten has seen him on a regular basis. And the way that Jacob Grandison is playing, DeMonte Williams, I almost said Frank Williams, Trent Frazier, and Andre Curbelo, those guys, the way that they're playing, they are the ones that give me the confidence that the Illini can actually cut down the nets in Indianapolis.
Well, Sean, I got the same. That's the same question for you, man. I mean, I know you follow them, even though you're on the East Coast down in sunny Florida. I'm a little jealous. I know we still have an opportunity to follow them, though. But that same question for you: when you look at this team, what gives you the confidence that they can do something big this time?
Yeah, obviously, Bardo's the point guard that he is, so he led the way for us there. He hit up all the key players, and that's exactly right. He named a bunch of guys that can make plays, so that's how big that is. I'll take it from the team aspect as well. He knocked out the individuals. When you get into the NCAA tournament, you better be able to win different ways. You can't just win one way all the way through the tournament, and I think we've seen this team now. You can grind it out inside. He mentioned Kofi's numbers. He talked about Ayo. They've got an unbelievable perimeter. You can win from the outside. They can knock down threes. We've seen this team now over the last couple of weeks, how good they are defensively. They can lock a team down if they struggle shooting the basketball. And then they're putting up 80, 90 points. So if they get to a shootout with the team, they can win that way too. So when you look at the big dance, you need to be able to win a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different styles. This Illinois team has proven that they can do that over the last couple months.
You know, and we look at it, and you always hear going back to back that your guard play is so important. Your guard play is so important. And I am, you know, I'm a big guy, played the 4, you know, and some 5 my time at Illinois. I still believe that to be true, and that the guards are an extremely important part of what you do. Looking at what Ayo Dosunmu has done, we know where he is. We know what Trent Frazier is. When we look at the 2 freshmen, are they ready for this level?
Go ahead, Sean. You can take that.
Yeah, I believe they are. And I think right now we saw them grow up. I'll be the first one to admit, when about halfway through the season, early on, I said, thank goodness Kofi and Ayo came back, because I don't know how good this team would be if those 2 guys weren't on there. They might have struggled to get to an NCAA tournament. So the rest of the team started to mature as the season went on. And then Ayo goes out, and you saw what they did. They won 3 games. And I started thinking, obviously this is good for the NCAA in the near future, but I feel good about their future moving forward. Now you've got 2 guys that you can kind of pass that torch off to. And Curbelo made plays. I mean, he hits a couple of shots there against Ohio State that, you know, they don't win that game without him. And obviously we're talking guards right now. How about Georgie, right? He has a little 3-4 minute stretch there. They don't win that game without him. So you saw the supporting cast come up, but you mentioned the freshman, and I saw something in Curbelo in that Ohio State game that, you know, he's not afraid to take big shots, and he's not afraid to make big plays. And that's encouraging to see a freshman step up like that in the Big Ten tournament atmosphere.
Yeah, I think also I concur with what Sean's saying. I also think that Ace Miller is, you know, he's kind of being overshadowed a little bit by Trent Frazier and DeMonte Williams, in my opinion, but he's definitely capable. I mean, when I called the game Illinois at Minnesota, and when they started getting out in the fast break situation, Adam Miller got out on the break as well as anybody, and can finish. And we know his 3-point shooting prowess. But the biggest area where he has improved is on the defensive end.
Yeah.
He's become a very good perimeter defender. And you guys know you can't get on the floor as a freshman if you can't defend. And so these guys have really matured throughout the year. They've gotten better in some critical areas. And so I think the tournament, the good thing, Deon, is that they've got vets that they can lean on. If they get in a situation that's unfamiliar, they can look to Trent. They can look to DeMonte. They can look to Ayo. And even Georgie, and, you know, find some support. And I think the freshmen are capable because they have upperclassmen that they can look to when if they feel uncertain or they're in a situation that they haven't been in. More than likely, Ayo, Trent Frazier, or DeMonte have. And so they have people that they can lean on and confine in if things get tough and they find themselves in an unfamiliar situation.
You know, one of the things I look at this team, and I agree with both of you, that you have to be able to score in various ways. You have to be able to stop guys when you have to make stops. There are 2 aspects that I've noticed with this Illinois team, and I want to hear both of you guys' opinion on it. One are the role players. I know we mentioned Georgie, but could you imagine a freshman that came out that had a freshman year like Trent Frazier, and now he's on the all-defensive team in the Big Ten? Guys like DeMonte Williams plays his role to the max. Georgie plays his role to the max. The addition of Granderson into that starting lineup was huge. How much does that play a key role? And then the second part of that is the connectivity that this team has and has shared. How does that help them moving forward?
I'll start, Sean. I think Jacob Granderson was huge. Because in college basketball now, the position of power forward is kind of gone. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Guys play 3 guards, a small forward, and a center typically now. You don't have big fours anymore. So Granderson at, what is he, 6'7", able 6'7". to rebound. He can stretch the floor. He's a stretch 4. Yes. He can stretch the floor with his 3-point shooting. Excellent on the glass. Underrated defender and willing passer. And so his ability to come in and flow seamlessly in the starting lineup has been a huge key to their success. When he started really feeling comfortable, to me, is when the Illini made their surge. And the second part of that, when you have guys at an All-American level, it's a heck of a lot easier to fill your role than if you think that you're as good as the big dog, as the appointed big dog. You feel me, guys, when I say that?
I respect. I love that.
You know, when there's a clear delineation between Io and the other guys on the team, it's easy to accept your role because you can't go and beat Io every day in practice. Right. So that makes it a lot easier for guys. Okay, this is where I need to be because this Io Kofi train is rolling whether I'm on it or not. Like Coleman could come in and fill in for Jacob Granderson if Jacob didn't buy in, right?
Yep.
Coleman Hawkins is talented as heck. He could fill in, but Jacob is doing a fantastic job because you got two dudes at All-American level. You got no choice but to fill in.
True. Sean?
Yeah, definitely. I can piggyback off that. I played with one of the greats in Frank Williams, and you talked about the separation of where he was and everybody else. He had that factor, right? He had that it factor, gave us that confidence, and we knew big time play needed to be made. The ball's going in his hands. It let us just kind of fill our roles. So you're spot on there, Stephen. And just piggybacking that, Deon, you talked a little bit about DeMonte. You talked a little bit about Frazier. I give these guys so much credit because when they walked on campus, there was nothing there. There was a decade of not very good basketball at Illinois. And so for those two guys to kind of set the tone, for those two guys to set the culture of where they needed to go, they're going to be unsung heroes. And they're great players, but they get the credit for building this culture. Io doesn't sign here probably if those two guys aren't there. They kind of get it rolling where a guy now says, okay, I can go see myself playing with those two guys. And, I felt like I was in a similar situation too, where, we had Sergio McClain, right? And we had Corey Bradford and we had, Robert Archibald, and those guys set the tone kind of for the underclassmen coming in who followed those guys. And so I think you got to give Frazier and you got to give Williams all kinds of credit for coming when things were bad and turning it into something really good and really developing that mindset of that toughness and that grit that you see in this team now today.
Well said, Sean.
Definitely well said. Let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up yet with Bet Rivers, now's the time. Bet Rivers Sportsbook is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. When you win at Bet Rivers Sportsbook, they pay fast. And now it's even faster. With RushPay, instant approval for withdrawals. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. With March Madness right around the corner, there's never been a better time to give Bet Rivers Sportsbook a try. Go to betrivers.com today or download Bet Rivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Now to this next one, Stephen. Thank you for hopping on here with us because I know you got to hop off. You're a wanted man nowadays, big guy, and that's a great thing to be. See, that's why I say, Sean, we're trying to be like him when we grow up. We talked about
set the bar high.
Oh yeah, way high. But that's what we do, right? That's what Alana and I do. We set it high.
That's right. Right.
So we look at what Illinois has become. We know where they come from. We have the guys that like Trent and them to set the stage. Andre Cabello tweeted this week, basically, and I'm going to paraphrase this, that he is where he is and he is reaching greatness because he has great guys to learn from, meaning Trent, DeMonte, and Io. How does that help a freshman develop?
Oh, it's you can't put a price on it. I came into Illinois as a freshman. I was able to start after the 9th game only because Tony Wysinger, a senior, who was my roommate on the road, and Doug Altenberger, a senior, Ken Norman, senior. That was the only reason I was able to play as a freshman. I mean, I'm trying to guard Dennis Hobson, All-American from Ohio State, and Ken Norman would, I'm trying to guard him and they're running me through screens, and Ken Norman would step back and check Hobson long enough so I could get off the one screen and catch up and go and continue to fight through this other screen. Little things like that, Sean and Deon, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
The vets, man, they take so much pressure off of you. And so that's why Andre Curbelo was able to blossom, because he wasn't thrown in the fire like that. Because you guys remember early on, Curbelo used to drive me crazy. I mean, you can see the talent. It's like, son, stop getting too deep on the penetration. You're not strong enough yet. They're going to hit you. They're not going to give you the foul because you're a freshman. And then he figured it out. But he could only do that if he had a backcourt full of seniors. Because if you don't have guys to show you the way, then you're just in the fire trying to figure it out. And that, a lot of times that doesn't work. Sean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, you're exactly right. You got the guys that surround you in the game. And then you mentioned too, practice is so important because he sees it every single day. And that's what you were hitting on. I see what Io's doing. Now I see what Frazier's doing. And then also he has to guard them in practice.
That's right.
So, that makes you, he's not on the starting unit, right? So he's coming off the bench in practice. So he's on that second squad. He has to guard these guys. And I had to guard Frank Williams. I had to guard Corey Bradford. I had no choice but to get better, right? I find, that makes you better. You see how good they are. I had to get better. And finally, I'm a senior, right? Now it's my turn. And then Bill Self brings in D. Brown and Darren Williams. So I'm taking down another notch. I can't even get ahead when I'm a senior. So, but I mean, the competition is there, right? And that's why we thought our team, the early squads, we were successful because the competition was so good in practice. And you're seeing that. If Carbelo's going against Io, he's going against Frazier, he's going against DeMonte, he's got no choice but to get better. And you see how good Andre Curbelo is. So he's making those guys better in practice too. So it's great competition in practice right now in this squad.
And I know we talked a lot about Curbelo, but I remember the first story Io told me when I had him on my podcast in the beginning. And he was telling me a tale that he had Adam Miller with him. And, of course, they were high school teammates. And Adam didn't dive on the floor after a ball. And he immediately walked over to him and said, hey, you want to play here? You got to be the first one on the floor. And that's that senior leadership that upperclassmen leadership that we were talking about for guys that have been there, guys that have been through the program, been through the storm, and that can teach young guys how they need to do and what they need to do to develop. And both of those guys are really benefiting from having some great guys. But Steve, as I mentioned, I know you have to hop off of here soon, but we have our bracket coming up. We all know what it is. We got Drexel that first game. And I want to talk and get into a little bit more about what Illinois has to do in order to make it through this bracket. In my opinion, they have one of the toughest runs that they have to run. So if anybody hadn't seen Drexel play, haven't seen Loyola Chicago play, haven't seen Georgia Tech play, haven't seen Oklahoma State play, haven't seen San Diego State play, and let's not forget the team that beat us early on was Rutgers. They don't play. And then you have Houston down there at the bottom waiting on us. What does Illinois have to concentrate on? And Steve, I'm going to give you the defensive end since you were a defensive specialist and let you take that. And you give me the offensive end, Sean. What does Illinois have to work on to get their offense clicking against some of these really good teams?
Defense-wise, your bracket looks a little bit different from mine, Deon. just to put that out there. But Drexel,
I got the one CBS put up. That's the only one I have.
But did you fill it out?
No, not yet. Not yet.
That's my point. See, mine is filled out.
Oh, you already filled it out?
Yes.
So then that means you're going to tell us who you got winning that thing at the end, right?
Illinois.
My man.
I've been on Twitter. I've been on IG. I've been blocking Michigan fans. They're like, oh, you just hating on Michigan because you lost in '89. What?
You should say, didn't they just beat the crap out of you?
Yeah, I mean, but anyway, so let me give defensively, Drexel is kind of one of those Cinderella stories. I think they're happy to get into the tournament. They've not seen anything like Illinois. They've not seen the defensive pressure that Illinois can put on their perimeter, and let alone interior-wise, they just don't have the size to compete with Illinois. I've got Georgia Tech beating Loyola Chicago. Now, Loyola Chicago is #1 defensive efficiency rating in the country.
Yeah.
They're an elite defensive team. But again, I don't care if you got Sister Jean and some divine intervention. Ain't nobody seen 7 foot 285 that can move like that, right? So Loyola wants to slow you down, be a grind out defensive team, or a grind out lower possession game. Illinois is fine with that. That's in the Big Ten. So if you limit Krutwig, he's kind of like a point center, excellent player. He could get Kofi in foul trouble, but I think this is where Georgie Bashanis-Vili will come in and be, a really good defensive big if that is indeed the case. But I have Georgia Tech beating Loyola Chicago. Georgia Tech is a team that forces a lot of turnovers. They've got Moses Wright, the ACC Player of the Year. Isn't that right, Sean?
Yeah.
Moses Wright.
Yeah.
And so they play a scattered kind of helter-skelter, forced turnovers type of game. Illinois has got too many guards that can handle the basketball for that. I don't see a problem there. I've got Tennessee advancing to the Sweet 16 against Illinois. Tennessee is up and down. They've got great athletes. I'm not sure about their guard play, and I don't trust Rick Barnes in the tournament. I just don't. I don't think he makes enough adjustments. So I think Illinois could blow them out, actually. In the Elite Eight, I've got Houston fighting their way through West Virginia, San Diego State. People think I'm crazy, but I love this Houston team.
Yeah. They're
and
good.
If Houston and Illinois meet in the Elite Eight, just don't think Houston has the size. They've got the moxie, they've got the heart, they've got the athleticism, and their guards can match up pretty well with the Illini. But that big boy in the middle is he's a different matchup problem. And I just think Illinois has too much depth. They're too versatile for a team in Houston that doesn't particularly want to get up in the 80s and 90s. They would much rather play 60s, be physical, kind of, walk the ball off the floor. Illinois will not have a problem, in my opinion, defensively getting through that region.
Well, I'll tell you this, and Sean, I'm going to let you hop on because I know Steve got about 2 minutes and he got to hop off of here. I agree with you 100% on basically everything you said on there. I think Illinois' size, I think what they do defensively and how they help is going to really cause anybody that they play in this problem. Illinois doesn't just do help one time. I mean, they got 2 and 3 and 4 helps anytime. So, you would think that ball movement would limit it or drives would limit it. I mean, I watched them against Oklahoma, against Ohio State and Michigan and all these things with multiple helps. And Brad has those guys believing and understanding that defense is what's going to lead the way. And you nailed it right on the head that they're scoring almost 80 points a game. So if I'm going to stop you on this end, then you better sure enough be able to stop me on the other end. And I don't think they can do that. But big fella, I know you had a cutoff. Are you still good for a few more minutes or do you need to hop off?
No, I'll wait until they call me and then I'll let you know.
Sounds good, brother. I appreciate it. I want you here the whole show. So I'm gonna try to keep you and try to steer you personally. So don't worry about that. But Sean, you heard what Big Papa said. What you got on the offensive end? Because you're gonna run into some good defensive teams. Yeah. And there are some guys on here like Loyola, as he said, slows it down. Houston slows it down. What does Illinois have to do offensively to not be slowed down? Because you and I both know we've seen enough of their games. They can go through some droughts, and there's some things that cause them problems. What do they have to do to get beyond those?
Yeah, and you just mentioned it. So if the game does get slow, the obvious answer is throw it to the big fella, right? I mean, that's what you do. Kofi needs touches, but it's not as simple as just give him the ball. It's how do they get him the ball? Because that's going to be a focus point for all the other defenses is how do we stop Kofi? And I think this staff has done a really good job here, especially as of late, of how they've gotten him the basketball. And what you really need to do is feed him from the top of the key, right? Because if you feed him from the top of the key, there's no help side defense on the backside. So you've seen teams that have tried to front him. You just throw over the top. There's nobody on the backside. He just goes up and gets it. And then if they try to play behind him, he's just going to punish them and put them underneath the basket and catch it deep. So what happens then is the wings start helping, right? Start creeping in, and that's allowing some kicks to the corners for open shots. And it also allows then for players to fly out of control at those corner shooters. And now they're driving baseline, and Kofi's got his man pinned. So there's no help there at the rim, and you're getting some easy baskets, that way. So I think it's so important that they have to get Kofi involved. Steven touched on it there. Nobody has anybody that can match up in this entire bracket that can match up with him defensively. You have to take advantage of that. If you go into a field goal drought, the easiest way to get buckets is to find an easy one around the rim, and Kofi's your answer. So I think getting him in high ball screens where he can dive into the middle and then feeding him from the top, I think are two really big keys for Illinois. And they've done that successfully for the last probably month or so. And that's why he's been playing extremely well. So that get him involved anytime you can. And then you mentioned it, Steven mentioned it, there's a lot of teams that want to slow this down, right? And that might be the only way that you can beat Illinois in this bracket. When you look at some of the teams that could be potential roadblocks for him, is slowing the game down. So Illinois got to speed it up. And I know Steven took the defense a little bit, but defense needs to turn to offense. Yep. This team is so good in the open floor. So if they can get stops, if they can block out and get, first shot misses and get those in the transition, this team's dangerous when they get out in the open floor, and whether it's getting to the basket or shooters finding spots on the wings to get some open threes. So really get out and run. But, it all starts with the big man. He opens everything up inside for everybody else.
Illini Nation, listen up. If you're like me, you want a personal relationship with your business banker. That's why, if you don't know our fellow Illini alum, Kevin Bastuga, from the class of '94, you should. Kevin is one of the founders of Chicago-based Signature Bank, a highly successful commercial bank that provides strategic and customized banking services to you and your business. At Signature Bank, you'll have a true partner. Kevin and his team will know you and your business, and they'll do whatever it takes to help you grow your business. Whether you need a line of credit to expand your business or finance new equipment, Signature Bank is here to help you. Signature Bank, helping Illinois business owners succeed no matter what it takes. So check out Signature Bank at www.signaturebank.bank today, or call Kevin Bastuga at 773-467-5606. That's Signature Bank at www.signaturebank.bank, or call Kevin Bastuga at 773-467-5606. And I'm going to piggyback on what both of you said, and I'm going to jump in here with one thing that I believe is kind of that transition and brings them together, is rebounding. This is one of the best rebounding teams in the country. And you're right, Sean, as well as Steven, they give you one shot normally at the basket. You're not getting two more. And when they get that thing, man, you got Ace Wolf running one wing, you got Io DeSumo down another one, and you got the El Mago, the magician, right in the middle that's finding everybody in the spot that they're supposed to be in. So what we're going to do right now, just a little bit of a switch up. We're going to the other brackets. Since we got Illinois in the Final Four, and I'm not expecting everybody to know that their bracket is right now, but I'll run down the teams. And you just tell me who you got. Steve, I know you filled yours out. Sean, I know you got another job other than just like Steve. We don't get to do what Steve does, just talk basketball all day long. Man, I want to be like you when I grow up. But we're going to hit that South bracket first. And that's where Baylor is the number one seed. Of course, they have Hartford. Then you got North Carolina playing Wisconsin, Villanova, Winthrop, Purdue, and North Texas, Texas Tech, Utah State, Arkansas and Colgate, Florida versus Virginia Tech, Ohio State, and Oral Roberts. Who we got coming out of the South?
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, when you look at it, it's very difficult to find teams on paper that are going to beat Baylor and Ohio State. It's just, I find it very difficult for those not to be the two teams to get out of there when you kind of look at it. To be honest, I just don't know if I trust any of those teams on that side to win 3 games to get out of there. Wisconsin is one that I was kind of hoping for them that they could get a 7 seed. because I think we haven't seen the best of them.
I agree.
Whatever happened, it's just they've lost some tough games. It's a senior dominated team. They're a different style because they post up everybody. So when you have to prepare for that, Stephen, you mentioned it. You get out of conference, it's a whole different game now. These teams haven't seen these guys. So you're telling guards that you got to go down there and front the post, and you're going to have to guard another guard in the post. We're looking like, what are you talking about? I'm not fronting the post in there. So I think if they could have got anybody but Baylor, in that second round, Wisconsin's a team that might have been able to win a couple games. I think they got a tough draw there. Baylor is not the same quite before that COVID pause.
I agree.
They were looking dominant, but I still really like them. There's just so many weapons there. In Ohio State, I love it's we see it sometimes when those teams play too many games in the conference tournament, right? They play 3 hard-fought games. How do they bounce back in the NCAA in a devastating blow? In this one, you lose in overtime that could have got you a ring in the Big Ten championship. So how do they respond? That's my only hiccup with them because I love the way that they're built. But I see Ohio State and Baylor meeting in the Elite Eight.
I dropped the mic. It's the same thing. Here's the interesting thing, though, guys. Baylor is about to play a Big Ten schedule, in my opinion, the way my bracket shapes out. Mm-hmm. So I've got Winthrop beating Villanova in the first round because Winthrop has a 6-7 point guard. And they come at you. And Villanova lost Colin Gillespie to a torn ACL. They have not been the same since. So I've got Winthrop in the upset there. I got Purdue beating Winthrop. But here's the deal. I've got Baylor playing Wisconsin in the second round, Purdue in the Sweet 16, and Ohio State in the Elite Eight. And I got Ohio State beating them in the Elite Eight. So I've seen Alabama. They're explosive, and they're a good defensive team. But some of the SEC games that I've seen, LSU, Alabama, their shot selection is questionable. Mm-hmm. And when you're going up against really good teams in the NCAA tournament, and let's say your shot isn't dropping because they'll come down with no passes and launch a 24-footer like it ain't nothing. I don't know if you guys saw the SEC championship game. That was wild. That Alabama and LSU, they had a shootout. I mean, they were trying to see who could shoot as far as Steph Curry. Seriously, there were guys shooting from the logos. And when you get into a tournament situation where teams are disciplined, like I've got Alabama and Texas Tech playing in the second round, I've got Texas Tech beating Alabama because
Arkansas, right?
I mean, Arkansas.
Yeah,
that's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant. I've got Texas Tech beating Arkansas because the difference between an athletic team that plays kind of loose and free and you play in that kind of conference compared to a Big 12 team where it's physical, they're defending and they've got shot makers. I think the team that is a little bit more disciplined and has better shot selection will win out almost every time in a neutral court tournament situation. So I've got Ohio State beating Virginia Tech in the second round, the Buckeyes beating Texas Tech in the Sweet 16, meeting up with Baylor in the Elite Eight, and Ohio State beating Baylor in the Elite Eight for a fourth time against the Illini in the Final Four.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, that's good. That would be interesting. But I agree with you guys on this. I would not sleep on that Purdue team. I really like them. We talked about what size means on the inside, and the big fella at Purdue just gets it done. And
he's playing his tail. But which one?
Not the big freshman.
Zach Edey started coming on towards the end. He's playing. Yeah. He is really playing well. And that Travion Williams is a monster. Come on now. That's a bucket getter.
He is. He is an absolute monster. And I think that's what's going to cause a real problem for these teams that don't have to face them. But I would not be surprised if that Ohio State team and Illinois is bumping heads again in the Final Four. I hope not. Don't want to see them again, to be honest. Because to beat a team 3 times is hard. Man, could you imagine trying to beat a team 4 times? Yeah. See, there you go. Trying to beat a team 4 times. So next, we're going to go west now with Gonzaga Well, they win in their first round, so we ain't gonna worry about them. We'll skip them. Oklahoma going against Mizzou, Creighton, and Santa Barbara. Virginia, Ohio, SC against either Wichita State or Drake. Kansas, Eastern Washington, Oregon, VCU, Iowa, Grand Canyon.
You want me to go first?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. You can set us up.
I got Gonzaga versus Oklahoma in the second round. The Missouri team is so mercurial and so up and down. I don't trust them in this scenario. Oklahoma hasn't been great, but I think that they've played overall better competition. And Lon Kruger is a master at adjustments in game that I think I like Oklahoma in that matchup. I've got the upset, UC Santa Barbara over Creighton. UC Santa Barbara is legit. They haven't had a tremendously tough schedule because they don't get as many opportunities as Power 5 conferences. That's a veteran team. That's a quality team, and they're physical. I like them in that matchup. I've got Ohio beating Virginia because Jason Preston will be the best player on the floor in that game. Virginia coming off of a COVID pause. Yeah. We don't know what they're going to look like. That's the only reason why I don't have Baylor beating Ohio State in the Elite Eight, because they're not the same team coming off of that COVID pause. I got USC advancing against either Wichita State or Drake, Kansas over Eastern Washington, Oregon over VCU, and of course Iowa over Grand Canyon. This is a scary game for Iowa, but I still got Iowa beating Oregon, meeting Kansas, who will beat USC in the Sweet 16. I've got Ohio beating Santa Barbara, meeting Gonzaga in the Sweet 16. That's when Cinderella runs out. Gonzaga wins that one. They face Iowa in the Elite Eight. It's a rematch from earlier in the year. Iowa is trying to play better defense. They are better defensively. Still not enough to beat Gonzaga.
I agree. I agree with pretty much all of that, big dog. I haven't filled out my bracket yet, so I really sound smart. Sean?
No, I mean, he was great points there all the way. And he hit it out. He hit on it a little bit. Oregon is a scary matchup for Iowa.
They could easily beat them.
We have not heard a lot about Oregon. They had a little bit of a pause there. Probably didn't get the recognition maybe they could. I could see them getting up and down in a running game because that's what Iowa wants to do. And I could see Oregon potentially winning that game there. Kansas is the one, again, too. What are we going to see out of them, right?
Good question.
McCormick, we don't know if he's back. Obviously, he was not at the Big 12. I heard Wilson maybe did not travel with the team potentially. I don't know if he's coming back with them or not. So you mentioned Virginia. We don't know what we're going to see out of them. This is kind of the wild card bracket. We don't know what teams are going to almost even look like in this one. So I think that's, throws everything kind of out of whack in that bottom 3/4. But all that matters is the top, in my opinion. And it's Gonzaga. And they're just playing so well. They're just, they're as good as any team that we've seen in several years now. And it doesn't guarantee them to win the national title. But when you look at that bracket and you look at the top 3 teams in there, they've already played all 3 of them. They beat all 3 of them by double figures. And I think they had all 3 of them down almost 20 at some point in one of those games. So, I mean, that's impressive. They're playing so well. I know they haven't been battle tested in a few months now in the West Coast Conference like some of these other teams have in conference play. But they're getting everybody's best shot. So they got to get up for every single game. They're not seeing quite the competition that some of these other teams see night in, night out. But you can't go against Gonzaga right now. It's going to take a very special effort from somebody to knock them off, and they're going to have an off night to knock it out of that region.
One quick question, and I agree with you guys 100%. I think Mark Few is one of the best, if not the best, one of the best coaches in the country. I mean, I think he does a great job of making adjustments. I think their recruiting and the way they play and flow is amazing. If somebody is to knock one of them off, give me one thing that they would need to do in order to knock off that Gonzaga team.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Give them food poisoning in the pregame meal. That's about it. I mean, guys, listen. Their 4th best player had a triple-double this year. Ajayi, I think is how you pronounce his name.
Ajayi.
Yeah.
Yeah, the two guard. He had a triple-double.
Yeah.
He's the fourth best player on their team. They got to have something extraordinary happen because they should have the easiest route to the Final Four because they're the top overall seed. But I don't know. Sean, you go ahead, man, because I don't see it.
I would agree. Coming out of that region, I don't see it happening. You're exactly right. I don't see it happening. Obviously, you start getting the Final Four, you're talking about the elite teams. Then at that point, it takes a special performance. I really believe Kofi would give them fits. I don't think they have a guy that could handle Kofi inside, and I think that could definitely mess with them. You need a team that could run with them, but also could lock them up. And I don't think they've seen that type of defensive pressure yet. That a team potentially like a Baylor, potentially in Illinois, those types of teams that they would potentially meet in the Final Four could give them the physicality and the defense that they really haven't seen yet. And that would be the one thing. If you could slow them down enough but still run with them, then you would have an opportunity to beat them. But they would have to have an off night. If they're playing their best, if everyone plays their best game at the exact same time, it's hard to see Gonzaga losing.
Agreed.
Hey, I appreciate that, gents. I think that was great, by the way. Appreciate that. Now we're going to go east. We got Michigan at number 1. There's no way in the world they're losing to Texas Southern or whoever that other team is. They'd have to,
Mount St. Mary's.
Yeah, they're actually pretty decent, but they'd have to fall down and not wake up and get to the gym on time. So we got LSU and St. Bonnie, Colorado and Georgetown, Florida State and UNC Greensboro. BYU will play either Michigan State or UCLA. Texas, Abilene Christian, UConn, Maryland, Alabama, and our buddy is back.
You kind of look at the middle there. I like Florida State. I think Leonard Hamilton's done a terrific job. I love his culture and his philosophy. You play a lot of guys. The sixth man on their team last year was the 4th pick in the NBA draft. So, you talk about guys buying in. They don't care who's getting the credit. The guys are just out there playing hard. They're playing for each other. They play a good style. I could see them getting to the Elite Eight. You look at that bottom half, Alabama can light it up, but that scares you because if you're going to go cold one time in the NCAA tournament, you're not going to be able to knock down threes the entire time. So I think they get hung up somewhere. Texas is the team that sticks out to me in that one. I just like their balance. They've got some athletic guys inside with Sims and Jones that they can score around the rim, but they're athletic, get up and down the floor. You got a solid backcourt with Andrew Jones and Coleman and Ramney. So you've got several guys there in the backcourt that can make plays. Stephen mentioned it earlier, teams that are ballot tested, and the Big 12 was no joke. I think it was right behind the Big 10 this year as far as conference-wise as being the second best conference. So they played all those teams twice and were battle tested going through there and then to go to win their conference tournament. So, they've been impressive. I think they can get out of the East. But again, a little bit with Livers with Michigan, that's a big question mark of how healthy are they at this point.
Steve? Oh man, you sound like I bit off your bracket, Sean. He hit it on everything, and I've got Michigan beating LSU in the second round, and then losing to Florida State in the Sweet 16 without Livers. Now with Livers, Michigan gets to the Final Four. But I made my bracket with Livers being out for the foreseeable future because I haven't seen the reports that say whether he's going to play or not. And Michigan is starting to get – I'm on this podcast with Illini, so I can speak my mind. Michigan is starting to get a little bit more like football where they're trying to be a little bit – they're not as forthcoming in what's really happening. Yeah. And so there's a lot of uncertainty there. I hope – because I know Isaiah personally. I love the dude. I hope he plays because when Illinois wins the national championship, I don't want any excuses from Michigan folk because they'll be talking smack.
No doubt.
But let me get back. Let me not go on that tangent. I like Georgetown beating Colorado because they're hot. Colorado is up and down. McKinley Wright, the fourth, is one of the best guards in the country, but the rest of his teammates are woefully inconsistent. I like Georgetown in that. Texas, I got Texas coming out of that region. So if Livers plays, I got Michigan coming out. If Livers doesn't play, I got Texas coming out of that region. I think Shaka Smart can navigate them through. He's done it before with VCU. Sean referenced the talent. Texas is long. Yep. They are long. Defensively, they'll cut your lights out. Sims can run as well as any big in the country, can protect the rim as well as any big in the country. Matt Coleman was outstanding in the Big 12 Conference Tournament, as was Andrew Jones. So Texas has everything. They're tough. They can run with you. They can grind it out with you. And so I like them coming out if Isaiah Livers doesn't play for Michigan.
I like that. Well, I'm going to throw a few in here. Not a few, just maybe a little curveball.
Okay.
When you look at, I like Maryland, not to say come out of this division, but to cause some upsets. What they do from a defensive standpoint, I think they really could cause some problems for first UConn. And then, as you mentioned, Alabama shoots a ton of threes.
Yes, they do.
What is one of the things that Maryland does best? Defend the three-point line.
Yep.
So that's going to be some tough matchups. I agree with you. I think Texas running away with their thing as much as I'd like. I'm Tom Izzo. I love Tom. I love Coach Izzo. Of course, Dwayne Stevens is my guy, but they're so short right now. They have nothing they can do with Texas, on any given day this year. And that Georgetown team is hot, but I like to see that. So now in the Final Four, we got the Zags, we got Illinois, we got Texas or Michigan, we got OSU or Baylor. Who's in your finals? Steve, I know you already told me. Sean, who's in your final, baby?
Yeah, right now there's nobody playing as good as Illinois in the country, and over the course of the season, there's nobody that's played as good as Gonzaga. And so those would be the two that I would match up and see those two go head to head. It's just they've proven it over the course of the year, and Gonzaga's done it the entire year, obviously, and then Illinois. You really look at what they've done over the last 2 months. It's impressive. Nobody's had a stretch like they've had in these last 2 months.
No, they are definitely trending. And Steve, you had the same. And Steve chose Illinois. So big dog, and don't matter that this is a U of I podcast. I'm not gonna put some extra salt on there for no. Who you think?
I hit on it just a little bit, and
yes,
I think Kofi is the guy that would give Gonzaga fits. I don't think they would match up well with him. I think Illinois could get after their perimeter a little bit and defend them. And then we talked about you got to win different ways, and Illinois can run with them. Yep. This is a team that would enjoy getting up and down, but they could also get stops when they need to. And I think physically they could get into Gonzaga a little bit. I really believe that Illinois is the one team that can beat Gonzaga. And when you kind of match it up spot for spot, I just don't see any other teams that could beat them in those positions. I think they've got the advantage inside, and I think they've got good enough guards that they can match that perimeter and neutralize that a little bit. So I would take Illinois in that battle.
And I don't want to sound like a homer, but I think third time's a charm. There's some things that Illinois does well that I don't care where you play, what court you play, whether you would play in pickup basketball or you playing in the NBA Finals, it doesn't matter. They rebound the basketball. There's not very many teams that can come close to rebounding the way they do. And not just Kofi. Their guards rebounding the basketball. Andre Cabello almost had a triple-double this year with rebounds. Ayo Dosunmu put up 2. There's no other player in the country that has had 2 in the same year this year. And then not to mention DeMonte, Granderson, all those guys crash and hit the boards. There are very few teams that can get out and run with them. Ayo Dosunmu in the open court, you guys cover nationally, I cover here. I don't know anybody that gets out like him in the transition and finishes like him.
Not this year.
Yes.
He's the fastest.
Yes. And then we talked about Kofi in the middle. Rebounding, transition and being able to play multiple ways, I think wins Illinois this championship this year. And that'll be the first in the history for us as a university. But man, I tell you guys, I don't know how much fun you had, but I had a shitload of fun doing this. So I appreciate you guys hopping on Champaign on Ice with me. As always, I always like to give my guests the last minute on the mic. So we're going to go with you first, Sean, and then we're going to let the vet close it out.
Whew, man, I just, excited for the NCAA tournament. And obviously, being the Illinois alum, just proud of where they've come. And, we're talking, just breaking them down. I think another thing is, think about when's the last time they've been down in a game, like not just a couple points, but just like down in a game. It seems like they are jumping on teams right from the jump. They always have a lead. It feels like the other team is always trying to get their way back into the game. And Illinois played so well here down the stretch. I feel like sometimes it feels like a close game when it's 6, 8, 9 points, because that's how well they're playing. And you're like, what's the problem? We're only up 7. We're only up 8. So like that's how well this team has played over the last month and a half. It's been impressive. I'm excited for it. It's going to be a fun run to watch them play. And, there's no better time of the year than the NCAA tournament. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy.
No, sir. Yes, sir.
No, Sean, that was a great observation. I would say this, is that, of course, I'd love Illinois to win a national championship, but the Big Ten needs to win a national championship this year.
Yes.
You can't keep calling yourself the best conference in the country, and you've gone over 20 years without a national championship, right? Regular season prowess is cool, but every other major Power 5 conference has had a championship since the Big Ten has had a championship. So if Illinois and Ohio State get to the Final Four and Ohio State beats Illinois, boy, I am rooting like heck for Ohio State, because the conference, from a national perspective, needs a national championship. You just can't keep saying, okay, we're the best conference, but we're coming up short in March. Well, that doesn't vibe. So that's why it's so exciting that Illinois is in the mix for that. Mm-hmm. MGM said that the most money right now is on the Illini nationally. Wow. So we're not being homers, fellas. Everybody else sees what we see. They may not see the nuances that we see, but the most money in Vegas right now is on Illinois. So I think the way that they've played, the way they've come on down the stretch, the way that they played when Io got hurt, and then he came back and looked like, Batman with the mask, and he's got half the country wearing black masks, trying to look like him. I mean, it's reminiscent of 2005, of 1989. And I'll leave you with this statistic. 1989, Illinois' number 1 seed in the Midwest, get to the Final Four, lose last second shot. 2005, Illinois' number 1 seed in the Midwest, national title game, Luther head 3 from beating North Carolina. The next step is for Illinois to cut down the nets, and they have the team to do that. And they're playing as well as any team in the country. So I expect them to cut down the nets in Indianapolis.
And I'm going to put this out there. 16 years in between each one of those. I like that. I like the way the direction that arrow is going. So, fellas, I appreciate you again. Thank you so much for joining me. And we're going to close out Champaign on Ice. But first and foremost, I want to say thank you to my sponsors again, Bet River Sportsbook and Signature Bank. This does not happen again without my partners and my teammates in crime. So appreciate you. Love, peace, and hair grease. We're going to close it out. Do not forget Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, like, subscribe, as well as call up my boys from the Field of 68 Network, like and subscribe their podcast as well. Because without them, they ain't carrying your boy on here. So I appreciate them as well. So as I said, love, peace, and hair grease, and we out.